Hey, listen, this is Coach Jay. I'm excited. You heard the first episode about why. I want to continue on with it, but I wanted to bring it to you as a metaphor of an onion. I think it's easier when we can kind of look at things and kind of put it together, and then later on, as we see, or when we're working, we can look at this image that we have in figures in our mind and to relate it with the conversation that we have. Then it makes it easier for us to remember and maybe go ahead and share this with somebody else to help them to articulate the why in their life. So in this case, the way that I'm going to use it is I want to introduce the why as an onion. That's right, an onion. And think of the definition or the picture of an onion. It's an actually element that has many layers. You have to so many layers you have to peel off to get to the middle. You know, and in that we want to look at the why as one of those tools being used to help us to pull back the many layers that affect the way that we live. And inside of the onion relies to our interpersonal person, our self-identity or our awareness or our growth. And what happens is, excuse me, the onion, as you start to pull off, things start to reveal. So as you pull one layer off, you reveal to yourself that there's something about this new layer that you're uncomfortable with. There's something about this layer that you're now pulling up is requiring some type of action to be taken. Something that needs to be dealt with. And this one that we're talking about is our end. We're going to put in the middle that we want to make better choices. We find ourselves making our choices a little late or based not complete or not realistic choices, but which affects our decision making. And based off of that, we become frustrated, aggravated, anxiety kicks in, all those different things because of the fact of our poor choice selections or the method in our choice selection, which cause us to make late choices. So instead of being proactive, we become reactive, and those reactive means causes stress. And inside of this onion, it's starting to build layers, and these layers are now hindering us for taking proactive measures to help us in our decisions, which causes us to have more of a negative outcome. Now, mind you, I'm not saying that everything I'm saying is ideal and is perfect, but I'm just giving you an example of this onion that we're building. And the one thing that I'm trying to build is a stem for motivation, a place where we begin to come out of this onion and reveal who we really are and not being fixated on bad choices or late choices or, as I said before, in the mode of survival where we are just existing based in like a wave just floating on the stems of the ocean, so wherever it pushes we fall a victim to. So in order for us to understand, we're saying I want to share with you the core versus the outer layer. The core of an onion represents the trueness motivation, where our outer layer often reflects eternal influence and superficial reasoning. Outer influences and superficial reasons. Let's deal with that. See, we can't be motivated if we continue to allow other people to dictate our outcome. We're relying on people to have conversation with us, to share what their views and their expectations for our life are. We can't expect to be so successful when we have to wait to somebody to come up with an answer and then present it to us. And from that presentation, then we begin to move. We have to begin to say why we're doing it. Why are we doing this? That's right. We have to begin to say it, not begin to ask. We have to begin to say it, because this why is always going to bring at least two more conversations that you have to have with yourself. And that's the what and the how. And then we can go ahead and say the when. So hopefully it might bring up the fourth, to who. But the why is going to definitely bring up some type of conversation for you to begin to analyze why you're doing what you're doing. What am I doing? When am I doing this? And how am I doing this? And why am I doing this with who? See, these things, these W's stick together for a reason, and we're going to talk about it. But we have to understand, we're trying to get to a place of motivation, but we're talking about the things I said, this external influence and the superficial reasoning. See, superficial means that it's not really substance. It's just like the surface. It's just a little thing. It's no different than salt sitting on top of an egg or pepper or sprinkled on an egg. if you throw a little water on it, it's quickly washed away because it doesn't season the egg. The only way it be season the eggs if you mix, you break up the yolk and everything, and you mix it all together and then pour it and fry it. Then it's cooked in the egg. But as you have a boiled egg and you sprinkle salt, pepper, whatever, it is not in the egg, it is on the surface of the egg. And that's what most of the stuff that we're dealing with right now is that we're dealing with things that we're just sprinkling on a bigger issue because we won't get into the nick and cranny of it. So therefore, the layer gets built over because it stops us from getting to the core value, which is the motivation. And the only way we can get that to work for us is for us to understand just that same illustration that I've given you. We can't look at this onion and just keep sprinkling salt and peppers on it and thinking it's going to get into the situation that we're facing, because there are layers upon layers upon layers that is stopping you from getting to the root of the matter. And most of the time it's happening is because in our situation, we have people that we have allowed to be in our life through maybe upbringing, to relationships or whatever. And it doesn't mean in a positive and it doesn't mean in a negative way, but it is that sometimes both of them come into play, and during the time that it comes, it could be the difference between a successful result or a more problematic issue. Sometimes we allow people to be influencers of our decisions because we don't want to make the hard decision. Or we want to be in a place of stagnation, so we're just looking for something to pull us out. And by pulling us out, it may not pull us out in the right direction because it doesn't remove a layer. All it does is create a layer, another layer of dependence. You either depend on this person for this or depend on that. So the why gets closed off and you just go into accepting things. And that's where we have a problem. We cannot do that if we're trying to take control over our day-to-day activities, especially when it comes to our decision making and the motivation that is needed to push you out of a situation or into a situation that's supposed to be beneficial from you. Now keep in mind, I'm not saying everything that I'm sharing with you is going to have positive results, but one thing it will do is help you to look at things from different perspective, from a different angle, from maybe a different insight. You will obtain some type of information if you begin to ask the why, because as I told you in previous sessions, that the why is a platform and to trigger the three or the four other questions. And those three questions that I start in the other one was the what, the why, and the how. Oh, I'm sorry, the what, the why, and the who, to turn into the when, and now into the fifth element, how. All of this comes together when you begin to ask the why. All right? So when we talk about external influences, we have to understand that knowledge of external influence our decisions. Our decisions. See, we have to understand that when you give away the ability to make your own decisions and they govern off of what other people, you give them power. And that power, believe it or not, becomes a layer, because inside of the onion now, if you peel one back, instead of you peeling it off, you just peeled it back and you got in between it. So now it's a layer under you and a layer on top of you, and both of them are stopping you from being motivated because you're continuing looking for other people to answer your question. You're looking for other people to answer your why because you're expecting them to ask the why for themselves to explain to you when they're giving the information to you. Instead of you saying, I need to understand, why do you feel the information you give me is so important to the activities that I'm facing? Why is it that you feel that the information that you're sharing is going to be beneficial to help him to bring insightful information that's going to help me to get past this level? I just need to understand, why do you feel that what you're sharing with me is so significant to my life that I need to take heed to it? I don't mean that I'm being rude. I'm just teaching you how I answer the why, because I need clarity. And that's why you ask the why, because why brings a certain form of clarity. If you ask and understand that I'm not moving forward until I can truly understand the reason for my why. And the why brings you to a place of vulnerability. It does. Because you have to be able to say, I'm asking this why is because I'm truly unknowledgeable or unlearned or untaught on this particular thing, or I have did a self-evaluation and I understand because in the past I did not ask the why. I am showing growth now because I'm seeking clarity to help me, one, become motivated, two, make better decisions, and three, have complete assurance that I'm making the most logical decision based off of the information that I currently have to help me to address A, B, C, D, E, or just F. Vulnerability in itself is challenging, believe it or not, because you have to show others, and not only others, but yourself, that you're willing to be open enough to ask the why. And to from that why, to be able to respond to the other questions that come about. And this why may provoke you or bring a place of assurance or a place of awareness to say that this counseling that I usually receive from this individual should not be used in this conversation because what I'm looking for, this person does not produce. And I'm not saying produce in a bad way, but everybody taught to you don't have all your answers. Everybody that hasn't been through what you've been through. Then there's some people's roles that are this for this, you have some for this, you have some for this, but they have a unique place in your life if you allow them to be in your circle. But everybody can't counsel you on your situation because this might be just unique to yourself. They may give you some ideas and they may give you some concepts, but you need to begin to ask yourself again, why should I even consider this, knowing that they're not confident enough in their knowledge or their platform or background to even dive into this area because they are not aware, they're not knowledgeable of this. It's not a negative, it's just understanding the position of your role. And again, why should I even have this conversation? And then now, if I have that, I begin to now look at role play, then I'm asking myself, the what now? What role does this person who I'm going to allow to have conversation could possibly play in this whatever decision making that I'm making? And then, like I said, back to who? Who are the players and what roles would they come in? And when should I bring them in? And how? Do I wait till after I have a conversation with these other 2 or 3 out of the 4 and then bring them in? Or should I go through this one? What role? First, second, third, or fourth? Who decides that? It should be you, not them. And you should be able to say, when? Is this the time when I bring it in? Have I exhausted all other means before I now look at other counseling, excuse me, to be considered in this decision-making process? Just go on with it. And we talk about the power of the core is understanding our true motivation can be powerful, driven for action. Once you realize the passion for an environment, conversation, and with driving you, you might be motivated to pursue a career in the field despite potential challenges. Yep, now I'm going into some business, going into a future. Many people who are in this place have big expectations. They have big goals. They have driven by want to see a certain level of success. But because the way that they approached this in the past, it has created roadblocks, them layers. Remember, I'm trying to pull them off. These layers are just building up. And I don't believe we can pull off the layers until we understand what the layers are. Yeah, I know it's going to be a part 2 to this. I don't believe that in this topic that we're having that we can really pull off the many layers that may be hindering you to become motivated to help you with your decision until we can start really sitting back and asking the why when it comes to who we allow into our life. When we start asking why, how do we get to this position that we're in, and why do we allow it to happen? We have to begin truly looking at self-identifying, do self-evaluation, self-development, self-awareness. We have to begin to start with those layers. Because I believe many of us go out and try to fix situations, but we don't sit and start with the main core issue. The onion's a beautiful thing because the onions can represent so many different facets in your life. You just got to begin to focus on what you want to address. What is it that you want to deal with? Yeah, I'm talking about motivation, but what if the first step that you need to take is to ask yourself, why do you have the people in the circle that you have them in? Why are you dealing with this type of decision? Why am I in this place of stagnation? Why this or whatever? I believe the first why is to do a self-evaluation of yourself and do a true, realistic approach and look at yourself and see if you find that there are many onions that you're dealing with that need to be addressed. Okay, good. If that's the way we're going with this, cool. We'll continue this later. But let's pick that one and let's work with that one, because you might got 20 onions or a bag of onions. But today we can work on one of them. And today I'm just using motivation. But the segue for you is to understand that maybe your first approach will be on my next video that I make, when I start talking about, let's address the layers itself and let the why help you address these layers in your onion. All right. Now, I know we talked about peeling them back. I know we were talking about trying to get to the core of whatever our situation is. But I think this is a good place to stop and really have a conversation with you. Even though our objective is to peel away layers and layers of things that have happened over time that may have hindered, maybe have become your value, your core value, or your belief, or maybe your assumptions. I believe that we have to look at this from an open perspective and have a willingness to say, you know what, I can make a change, and I'm willing to make that change. I believe this would be a good place for us to backtrack a little bit and bring up another teaching about revealing what the pills or the layers are, and then fast forward to this segue where we can go ahead and talk about it. It's a good place, I believe, and I'm gonna look forward to actually talking to you about the peeling process as we go on. But I believe this is good enough for us to see that, advanced or not, we do have an understanding that the why is important in our day-to-day activities. And maybe we need to sit back and analyze things from another perspective in hopes that it will bring us to some more clarity. But anyway, this has been Journey Junction with Coach Jay, and I really enjoyed myself, and I look forward to continuing on this process. I can't wait to see what comes out of it. Hey, if you got time and you would like to know a little bit more about me, go ahead to see me on our webpage. It's onemovementllc.com, or you can hit me up at james@onemovementllc.com, and I'll be more than happy to talk to you via email. And if you ever feel that you would like to be one of the members on the podcast or on one of the video casts, let us know. I'll be more than happy to talk to you, and we can have some conversation about some different things, and maybe we can talk a little bit about how you overcome your why and how you have built that into your day-to-day activity. But if nothing else, again, leave your comments below, hit the bell, hit the like, thumbs up, or just subscribe to whatever form that you're hearing this on, and I look forward to talking to you. All right, I'm Coach Jay, man. It's been a pleasure.